If you know anything about my channel, then you know that I talk a lot about how effects plugins should not be your priority when learning how to produce music, but I've also said that I'm not against upgrading plugins. So here are 5 plugins that I believe are 100% worth the money and you should consider getting. I'm not gonna go in any particular order, but I will say that I'm saving one of my all-time favorites for the end, so you'll have to stick around for that. The very first one is Decapitator. So Decapitator is by Sound Toys. So this is what it looks like, and this is a distortion plugin, and it's really simple to use, even though there's a handful of different things that we can do. But I'm gonna show you what this sounds like on a few different pieces of source. So the very first one is on this lead vocal. I'm gonna actually turn it off so you can hear what this sounds like with the distortion turned off. And then we'll go ahead and take a look at how it actually sounds once we add the distortion in. So let's go ahead and play this. This is chorus number 1.
Leave no trace. Time is racing.
All right, so in this case, this is a very aggressive, punchy type of a track. And so one of the cool things I love about using Decapitator is you can throw this on your vocals, whether you throw it onto the actual individual channel strips, or you can go and do this on a bus and do parallel distortion. But in this case, I'm putting it directly on the vocals, both the lead vocal and the doubles. And just check out how much of a difference this makes.
Leave no trace. Time is racing.
So you can really hear that crunchy, nice distortion on it. And the thing I love about Decapitator is you can obviously blend this in with the mix knob. You can decide how much drive you want to put in. You can add a low cut in here. So if you're putting this on things like vocals or guitars where you really don't want to have all that low end getting muddied up with the distortion, you can actually remove some of that with the low cut. I'm just going to play it here. Just as adding about 6.5 on drive. Mix is maybe like 55–60% on the mix. And you can see we are doing a little bit of a low cut. So let's just play this soloed out on the lead vocal.
Leave no trace.
This is off.
Time is racing.
And then
Wasted mind.
But watch what happens as we start adjusting the tone on this. We'll turn this all the way to bright.
Leave no trace. Time
Dark.
is racing. Wasted mind.
So it obviously changes the entire tone and coloration of that distortion. So let's just take a look at the drums here. Let's just solo out the drum bus. So obviously nice and punchy and gritty. There's already a lot of grit on it. But what I can sometimes do here is grab this, and then we've got Decapitator on here, Punish. We're gonna set the drive up, and let's just listen to how this sounds without touching it, without doing anything. Obviously that is utterly ridiculous. So we would turn this way down. The other thing I would want to do on this, especially on drums, is we really don't want this to be muddy, so I'm going to low cut this. I don't want that kick having any issues. Let's go ahead and check it out now. So here's what so this is what it sounds like with absolutely none. I'm going to start blending this in. And that's where you start getting it to where it's like absolutely ridiculous, way too much. So we turn it way down here. Let's go ahead and mute it off and see what it sounds like without it now. And then with it on. Decapitator is like a staple plugin that I'm using on almost every single track I'm doing. That leads us to the number 2 plugin that I absolutely love. Another one that I use on almost every single production, and that is Realm. It is the Native Instruments reverb plugin. And the thing I love about this is you don't really need to go crazy with it. You're not having to worry about all of the different types of reverbs and hall or plate or string reverb or any of that. It's very, very simple. You have your mix knob, you have your decay, and you have a couple little filter options here. And the rest of this, I usually am not touching apart from perhaps diffusion. So this is what this vocal sounds like in the pre-chorus without reverb at all, completely raw.
Don't tell me that you really want to stay when I'm the one who made all the change.
Just by adding Realm on, and I do have this on a bus, so I'm not putting this directly on the individual channel, but that doesn't matter too much. You can see here I have basically a 3-second delay, 100% mix, and then I'm not really having to worry about the cuts here because it sounds pretty good on its own. But just listen to how good this reverb sounds.
Don't tell me that you really want to stay when I'm the one who made all the change.
This is a beautiful sounding reverb on almost anything and everything. So I've used it on pianos, I use it on vocals, I'll use it on other kind of ethereal elements, I use it on strings a lot, and it's just this beautiful space that just sounds good on again, it just sounds good on everything. So let's actually take a look at how this sounds on some piano here. All right, so let's just go ahead and listen to this piano without any reverb. Sounds good, right? That's obviously a pretty dry piano, but then we throw reverb on here, the round reverb on here. Let's just go ahead and do like a 4-second delay, and then we'll go ahead and blend in the mix knob here to see how it sounds as we get into it. And just that alone, it's like one plugin that you throw on there, adjust the mix, adjust the decay, and you're done. I don't want to be like the 2 clicks in and it's perfect type guy, because that's already been said and done before. But one way or the other, round is like the #1 reverb that I'm going to if I want something very quick and I want something that sounds incredible right out of the gate. All right, that brings us to number 3, and this is a very, very simple tool, and I've just been using it all over the place. I don't really talk about mastering on this channel a lot, but this is a tool that you would use for mastering. You can also use it on your actual mix process as well, and that is the Black Salt Audio clipper. This thing is just remarkable. So the main idea with using clipping is that you can actually clip a signal, which is shaving off the loudest part of the transient, and that actually allows you to get more loudness. So when people are talking about loudness, many people are going to reach for limiters to get that loudness, but the problem is that when you smash a limiter really hard, it's very noticeable that you are using a limiter. It's very noticeable when something is being over limited. Now the benefit of using a clipper is that you can actually clip off the most loud part of a transient, and then after that you could use a limiter or a compressor or any other type of processing. It will actually allow you to get more loudness from whatever it is that you're talking about in a way that is going to sound significantly better than limiting. So let me just show you on this snare as an example. Let's just go ahead and listen to these drums a little bit here. We're going to be listening just to the snare. Okay, so what we're actually listening to right now is the snare right here. Right there. Now what we can do is at the very beginning of this, at the very first slot, we can go ahead and grab the Black Salt Audio clipper. And then what we're gonna do is take this knob here, we're gonna take this here and drag it down till we are actually clipping just a little bit. We're talking like 3 dB maybe at the max. There we go. Now, what's really cool about this is that this is now going to allow us to start getting a louder perceived sound from the snare simply by clipping off the loudest part of this snare. Watch this. Without this clipper on, so I've bypassed it, if you look down here at the actual loudness, we've got 11.8 dB. Let's turn it on now. Minus 14.6. Did that sound any quieter to you? Off. What ends up happening is it sounds louder even though the decibel level is quieter. So this is what we're talking about when we're talking about perceived loudness. And if you want like full-blown tutorials on this stuff, I really like Streaky. He's got a great YouTube channel talking about this, or you could look up Hardcore Music Studio. Jordan is actually the one who owns Black Salt Audio, so he could talk about this much, much better than I can. Okay. But basically, all this is to say, just to make a long story short, you can basically put clippers on things that have typically very hard transients. That's why snares are really good, drums are really good, and this is also why you can actually throw this on your mix bus processing or even when you're talking about mastering. So if we actually look at the master on this, you can see that I have a clipper after I have my compression and I have my EQ. So I have compression EQ, this is kind of doing some shaping overall on the actual signal, but if we look at the actual clipper here, check this out. So if we put this and turn off the limiter, because it's obviously nice and loud, we are left hitting right at minus 3 dB. That's a really good thing, obviously, because then this allows us to now throw the limiter on and actually amp this back up, and we're gonna get more loudness. And the real point here is that because you're actually shaving off the loudest part of these transients, the limiter no longer has to work as hard. But one way or the other, the Black Salt Audio Clipper is a fantastic tool. I think it's totally worth getting, especially if you're needing help getting more loudness from your tracks. You need to be really careful that you don't overdo it, obviously. You don't want to be, cutting out 6 or whatever dB, shaving that off. That's not going to sound particularly great. All right, so that brings us to number 4. Now this one here is a little bit harder to demonstrate on a track like this because we've already gone through the process of editing. However, I think one of the most valuable valuable tools that I have in my toolkit right now is Revoice Pro by SynchroArts. I have a whole video on this. I have a link down below where you can actually check out the video where I go through how to tune vocals naturally using Revoice. However, the benefit of using a plugin like Revoice is not just the fact that it's a vocal tuning software, which it is. It's also such that when you have all of these vocal layers in here, like this right here, we've got a lot going on. Let's just solo out these vocals.
I'll walk away. You'll hear the chime.
So you can hear how tight these vocals are. When we were actually looking at raw performances, these vocals were not that tight. So Revoice Pro does two things primarily. Revoice Pro is going to allow us to tune our vocals, so it's comparable to Melodyne, Flex Pitch, Auto Tune. It's in that same category. But beyond that, you're able to grab all of these vocals, tune the main vocal, which is the lead right here, and you are then able to basically apply all of that tuning to all the other vocals that you have down here, and you can also start correcting the rhythmic to align all of this. So let me just show you what this actually looks like so you can get a little bit of a visual. This has already been tuned, but we're going to use this as an example. What we can do, and again, you can grab multiple vocals. This is not just the one vocal thing. I'm just going to show you with one vocal. We're going to go in here and we're going to grab Revoice, so SynchroArts, Revoice, ARA. Then we need to capture that audio, which is going to capture, and click show. And now you can see, just like this, we now have our vocal, and it looks exactly like any other tuning software. And we can now start going in here, and you can see it's showing you, -7 cents. You can see +2, 3. And obviously I didn't go in here and, perfectly edit the vocals because that's not actually my goal when I'm pitch correcting. But you can go in here, and obviously you can start manipulating the vocal. Now, the cool thing is that once you actually add other vocals, you can see this is the raw vocal that we started with. This is the one that we're actually manipulating. It'll start adding and stacking all these other vocals in here. So for the sake of demonstration, I'm gonna go ahead and grab these other doubles. All right, so let's just hypothetically say these are all of our vocals. We've got our lead vocal here, and then we've got our doubles. So what we can do is actually grab Revoice and put it on all of these. We're gonna grab all the vocals in here. We're gonna capture the audio. And you can now see we have all the different vocals that we dropped in here with their names. So chorus double left, we've got the chorus double right. This would be our lead vocal right here because it's the unnamed one. So we can go in here, we can pitch correct this vocal, and we can actually apply the pitch correction from this vocal to the other two vocals. So we don't even have to go through and pitch correct those other twos because it'll automatically apply it. And then beyond that, we can go in and actually time align all of these vocals together so that you can see here if there were any discrepancies, which you can see like between right here and right here, there are some discrepancies in terms of the timing of that transient. It will automatically align that. So basically what you're getting is you're getting the equivalent of Vocaline that is built directly inside of Revoice, but you're also getting the pitch correction piece of it. So again, I have a whole entire tutorial showing you how I tune vocals with Revoice Pro. I link it in the description down below, but this is one of those plugins I did not want to skip out on because this is a really powerful tool that I use in almost every single production, especially if it's vocals. All right, so number 5, my 5th favorite plugin. I would be remiss if I don't talk about Baby Audio. To be completely honest with you, I like virtually all of the Baby Audio plugins. I think they have 5 or 6 different plugins that they have that I'm a huge fan of. But my number 1 favorite plugin that Baby Audio makes is Spaced Out. It's another reverb tool, but it's also a delay that is built right into it as well. And one thing I'll say is that Spaced Out is very CPU heavy. So you would not want to be putting Spaced Out onto a bunch of individual channels. It's going to use a huge amount of RAM. So what I oftentimes do is I'm going to create a bus that I know I'm going to send other things to and process from there. So I just go ahead and grab a bus here. We're going to go grab Baby Audio, Spaced Out, and this is what the interface looks like. Really nice and clean. On the left-hand side, this is actually a delay, and on the right-hand side, this is the reverb. For me personally, I tend to lean towards using the reverb more than anything. And this XY axis right here is how we blend between all of it. So you can actually get the reverb and delay all happening together, but you can also get it to where you could have just the delay by going over here, and you can see this is, almost 50% dry, 100% wet, and as we move the XY axis, if we move it up here, there is 0 dry signal, and then it's a 50-50 blend of the delay and the reverb all the way down completely dry basically. By using this, we're able to get some really cool things happening in terms of the actual reverb or delay, depending on what you're wanting to do. One of the other things I love about this plugin, and really all the Baby Audio plugins, they do this with their crystalline or crystalline reverb. They also do it with their delay, the Comeback Kid delay, is they have this ducker tool. This is incredible because it's essentially sidechain compression that is happening directly inside the actual plugin, so you're not having to apply this after the fact. So if your reverb is getting in the way of whatever the signal is that's running through it, you can just turn the ducker up and it will automatically squish the reverb down as the signal is going through it. So it's really, really fantastic. So let's actually take a listen here. What I want to do is show you what we're going to listen to without it first, and that is this sound right here. Which is a really cool sound. It's actually one of the presets that I create with hammers and waves. But you can see here, this is spaced out. We've got it, so I have this set to a more lush reverb, and I'm gonna have more of this reverb mixed than anything. Off. On. This is like the all-time ethereal reverb in my opinion. This is like the best kind of ethereal sounding reverb, and the Stardust, I absolutely love using this. There we go, we can hear more now. Off. On. And then obviously you can blend this into taste. Now, obviously there's the whole delay section, which is really kind of cool because you literally just grab on here and you tap it, and then this will be what's controlling the actual amount of delay. And so you can see there are these different sizes. There's big and then there's small. That's actually how loud it is. So you can do these kind of crazy things where you can do one that's loud, softer, accented, de-accented. And so here's just what that would sound like. So you get some really crazy things. You get some really, really cool textures on this as well. And one more thing I want to show this on would be this sound, just to give you another kind of unique kind of sound that we could run through it. Okay, so it's another kind of keyboard instrument. I tend to use spaced out on more like keyboard type instruments just because I find it to sound really, really good on those sides. So again, I'm going to move this over primarily to the reverb, and let's listen to how this sounds. Wow. All right, so you can already hear that this reverb is really taking up a lot of space. So let me show you the ducker on here. Let's go ahead and turn the ducker up a little bit. Off. On again. Now here's how the reverb and the delay actually sound like blended together now. So you get some really crazy textures, some really crazy sounds. All in all, spaced out, one of my all-time favorites. I use this on almost every track, especially since I use a lot of these kind of more ethereal type textures, ethereal type sounds where I need something that's gonna add that element of space. Now I have links in the description down below for all these different plugins for you to check out. And if you are a member of Producer Accelerator, we have discounts for most of the brands that we've mentioned in this video as well. I have my Sweetwater link down below, all the links for all the gear. So if you wanna check any of that stuff out, you can see what I'm using in the studio and you can check out any of those plugins. So with that said, we'll see you in the next video.